American politics has always been behind these films. People have read in from the very beginning. They read in the relationship between the US and the Soviet Union, Watergate. Now, in this episode, without quite being Michael Moore, it is very political. There are references to have we become what we feared. There are references to the state of the Republic. How intentional was that for you?
Well, the story, the political backstory was written 30 years ago. It was written during the Vietnam War and in the Richard Nixon era. I didn't want to do a movie about how people take over democracy. I wanted to figure out how democracies give themselves over to tyrants. And, you know, like after the Roman Senate killed Caesar, why did they turn the whole thing over to his nephew? You know, here's an interesting thing about democracy is if you don't treat it well, if you don't do your job, especially if you're a representative in the Senate or the Parliament or whatever, you know, the whole thing can go awry because if you're always bickering and not agreeing on things and doing the people's work, who elected you, a tyrant will come in and take over and do it for you because the people want to get the job done. And they will tend to go where the person who's got the most leadership is.
Of the 20-year Star Wars project. Mark Kermode, quite an honour for Star Wars to be shown at Cannes, but does George Lucas deserve it?
No, he doesn't. I mean, despite that, you know, political justification, it's the best of the prequels, but that's not saying anything at all. I mean, the film you have to compare it to is The Empire Strikes Back, which, of course, is much darker. It's not directed by George Lucas. I mean, Lucas is not a director. He's a producer. He writes and directs like an accountant, and this really feels like a bean counters movie. I mean, there's the whole thing. You're meant to have the story about Anakin going to the dark side, but there is no darkness. There's a moment in it in which Obi-Wan Kenobi says, I cannot believe that Anakin has killed younglings. You can't believe it. I've been here for 2 hours and I have seen nothing in that guy's face to imply that he's actually gone over to the dark side. All the dialogue is incredibly clunky. I counted at least 3 occasions on which people say, we must move quickly. Well, in your own time, George, move quickly. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. The special effects are over-cluttered because he doesn't know how to discipline himself with CGI. And the only feeling I got when they finally got to putting the bucket on Darth Vader's head was, at least it's done. At least it's finished. Please don't let us have episodes 7 to 9. It's rubbish.
Judy Myson, there are 40-year-old men around the world who saw the first one when they were 12. They're waiting now to sit down and watch all 6 on DVD all night, forever. You're a normal person, so how did you respond to it?
I am a normal person. I think I watched it with a lot of those men, though. No, I agree with everything Mark has said. I mean, I agree with you. Evil Empire of Hollywood is what it is. It doesn't belong at Cannes. And to be honest, compared with the interesting, complex, if even flawed works of art we've seen here, it's just an expensive product made, which a lot of people will buy. I mean, it's just an expensively made piece of rubbish, I think.
He's clearly clever, though, Tom Paulin, because to have made all that money, but also very carefully pointed the remarks he made this week. This is all about American politics, George W. Bush. Clever thing to say here, but did you buy that?
Well, I hadn't known he'd said that until I saw it there now, and I mean, I agree that it's clunky and tedious, and I've no interest in watching battle scenes, but there is a moral seriousness about it. It's saying, you know, there's something wrong with the Republic, what seem to be the good guys turn out to be the bad guys. There's a sense of menace and despair at the heart of it, which I find oddly interesting and moving among all the tedium, but there is a moral centre to it. Definitely is, all deep social and historical anxiety, saying basically we've got an empire now, we shouldn't have an empire, and what's going to happen?
Mark, it's clearly not a vanity project in the usual sense because it's made a great deal of money and it's commercial.
Yes,
but
exactly.
In another sense it is, though, because quite clearly, as you say, he should have brought other people in to write the script.
Yeah.
And there are rumours Tom Stoppard is supposed to have done a polish on this. Who knows if he did, but he hasn't done enough of a polish.
No, he hasn't. I mean, it is a vanity project. It's basically George saying, I made this, I'm going to do whatever I want, and getting away with it. In terms of what you said about at the centre having this menace, the problem for me is it doesn't have any menace, whether it's Phantom or otherwise. I want it to have a dark heart, but it doesn't. And you know, I think what it's overburdened with its own portentousness, and yet somehow it is still completely fluffy and light. It's at the same time ponderous and empty.
But no, but if you think that you're making a big popular movie for huge audiences and you want to communicate a sense of the unease that many people share about, you know, the whole historical project that America has started, This seems to be very serious. It's not simply empty and fluffy.
But Tom,
tedious
there are moments,
as it is.
I was going to say, but I'm going to force you to attend these 24-hour Star Wars parties where they show all 6. We'll lock you in the room and you've got to watch them.
Right.
It's designed, I think kids will enjoy it. It is effectively a kids' movie. But apart from the opening sequence, which I thought was fantastic, actually, about the first 10 minutes, it's just not exciting enough. And I think all the actors seem embarrassed to be in it, including particularly Ewan McGregor.
You're right to make the point, though, the 12-year-old and 6-year-old I thought it was fantastic.
28 years after Star Wars first hit the silver screen, the 6th, and says the director's last film in the saga, is being premiered at the Cannes Film Festival tonight. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is the prequel to the original 1977 Star Wars, bringing the story full circle. So after a lukewarm reception for the last few in the series, is the Force back with George Lucas? Our arts correspondent Nicholas Glass reports from Cannes.
You're under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
And so for the last time, it was unleash the lightsabers, prepare for the final episode of Star Wars. Surely this must be another billion-dollar baby for George Lucas. Star Wars to some critics.
Every single Jedi is now an enemy of the Republic.
A quasi-religious experience for others.
Must be done.
We all piled into the press screening at 8:30 this morning.
Show no mercy. Who could have done this?
Twisted by the dark side, young Skywalker has become.
I feel so helpless.
30 or more years since George Lucas had the idea, 6 episodes and some 13 hours of movie later, and we've reached the end.
You were the chosen one!
Born in Modesto, California 61 years ago. These days the hair and the beard are grey and there's a bit of a paunch. George Lucas is a filmmaker tycoon, the head of an empire that takes in all aspects of movie making, sound, special effects, video games and merchandising. His is a folksy, avuncular presence. People like him. He's been promoting his film for a week or two.
I like to make movies. I don't like to talk about them. You know, when I did Star Wars, none of this existed. I mean, it existed here at Cannes, but in the real world, you did like one TV show maybe and 12 or 13 interviews, and that was basically it.
Do you feel like you've been married to Star Wars?
Well, I don't know if married is the right word, but I would say that they are my children, and I've raised them. You know, and it's been as challenging as raising my kids, which is saying a lot.
Is there a sense of wanting to move on then?
Yeah, definitely. A 10-year commitment to do something is a long time of your life, and you know, I work on it every single day. You know, for 10 years, you don't get breaks, so it's like now I'm on a break, which is the first break I've had in 10 years.
This is where the fun begins. Let them pass between us.
In the first one, I had no idea it would be a hit movie. Everything I did was predicated on the fact that it would fail. And when I started up again to do the prequels, and I started, you know, with episode 1, I said, well, it's going to be about a 9-year-old boy. Everybody thought I was crazy. And if I was doing it for a studio, I know they would never let me do that. People were very nervous that it was going to fail. So it wasn't a slam dunk or anything, but it did, you know, that one did very well at the box office, and then they've all done well at the box office. So now I can put them together and say it's one movie, and it should be thought of as one movie.
In terms of that merchandising deal you got out of Fox, did you have any idea how valuable it was going to be?
Well, nobody did. When I did the merchandising, the only thing I was thinking about was I wanted to make T-shirts and posters so I could promote the movie, because I didn't think the studio would do it.
George Lucas has described this latest episode as the tragedy of Darth Vader. The trade papers certainly liked it a lot more than the last 2 episodes. So did this morning's audience.
I thought it was fantastic. It's great. I'm just full of dreams. I come out and it's all magic. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know. I love it.
I think it's brilliantly made, but you know, let's move on.
I liked it more than number 1, but I think number 2 was better than this.
C'était le meilleur Star Wars. Ouais.
The best?
Ouais. The best Star Wars.
Did it move you?
Yes. Yes, really. I was a little crying at the end.
It was good, but I was disappointed that it was so short of humor. He had to tie up the loose ends of the story, and that constricted him.
That's the best thing in this film, I think, that for compared to episode 1 and 2, that he has left the jokes out.
There is one thing that might amuse that irritating character Jar Jar Binks is restricted to a subliminal appearance. The movie cost $115 million to make, and as ever, they're spending millions more launching it.
Well, I mean, I like fast cars, and this is my first time to a Formula One race, so it's exciting for me, definitely.
Ever fancied having a go in one yourself?
I would love to. We could inquire about that one. I don't know. Maybe in a year's time or so.
I remember seeing the first one when I was a little girl. We queued up to see Grease and we couldn't get in, so we went to see Star Wars instead. So yeah, but I did really touristy things like have my picture taken with a Star Trooper and things today. Stormtrooper, oh God.
The first 2 of the last 6 of the 9 of the 4 of the 3, whatever number they weren't quite getting us emotionally, and the story was getting a bit. And apparently this story, and it goes a place, and then he gets all the helmet and the stuff, and learns to talk into bottles. Darth Vader. Darth Vader does bottle talking. You know that though. That's if you get a bottle, you can do it.
A man who's definitely no stranger to the red carpet. What do you think of this event?
Well, it sounds splendid. I live right opposite, and I'm looking at all these flames going up. I think, my God, the place is blowing up. We don't have to go.
You thought there must be something going on down there?
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it?
No surprises as to who you're cheering for, I guess?
No, obviously. Come on the dark side.